Hi, Rick again. Last time, we covered the models that illustrate the idea of frailty. In this lecture, we select some risk factors and protective factors that are associated with frailty. After the lecture, you will learn to distinguish the impacts of the risk factors and protective factors between a frail and non-frail group. Let's get started. Today, we're going to cover risk factors and protective factors. These risk factors are categorized into three groups: social factors, diseases, and psychological factors. These risk factors are statistically and highly related to the risk of frailty. The first one is age. Obviously, frailty is related to age. The older the people are, the higher risk of having frailty. Statistically, people ages 70 to 79 have a 70% higher chance of being frail than people ages 65 to 69. The second thing is educational level. In the study of Hugendick and the team, they defined having attended elementary school or less as receiving relatively lower education, while having attended general secondary school, college, or university as receiving high education. The study showed that people with low educational background had a 194% higher chance to have frailty than people with high educational background. People with dementia have an 85% higher chance of being frail than people without dementia. This situation could be explained by the fact that dementia is linked to an increased risk of stroke, cerebrovascular disease, and cardiovascular disease. These conditions also reduce the activity level of the older adults. Hence, with a reduced willingness of doing physical activities, the cycle of frailty might potentially begin. People with diabetes have a 118% higher chance of having frailty than people without diabetes. This could be explained by two mechanisms. First, insulin resistance. Decline in insulin sensitivity causes sarcopenia and loss of strength. Second, chronic inflammation. It affects the maintenance of skeletal muscle, and it is highly correlated with greater vulnerability to disability and mortality. People who had a history of arthritis had an 89% higher chance of being frail than people who had not. The reason is there is excess uric acid in the body, which is a strong inflammatory factor in human cells. Similarly, inflammation is a risk factor of frailty which affects our energy level and physical activity. Therefore, frailty syndromes might be easily evolved. Depressive symptoms is an also other risk factor. The more depressive symptoms you might experience, the greater chance of having frailty you might have. Let's talk about the protective factors. Although it may not be a causative factor, there is a significant difference between people who are living alone and people who are living with other family members or people. If you are living alone, you probably would have a 20% lower chance of having frailty. Income would be one of the protective factors. If you're receiving high income, say more than 1,191 euros, you would be 44% lower the chance of having frailty compared to people who had low income, which were less than 736 euros. In summary, there are some risk factors and protective factors: age, educational level, dementia, diabetes, history of arthritis, and depressive symptoms might be highly associated with frailty. Yet, there are some protective factors which are living alone and high income, which may help to reduce the chance of being frail. These findings imply that we could identify whether the person might have a high risk of being frail when we provide services. Besides, based on the situation, we can also offer suitable frailty screening methods to the person in order to prevent worsening of the adverse outcomes of frailty.